Hey, before we get started in this one, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, leave me some questions and comments down below. Hope you enjoyed today's. All right, good morning, guys. So today's video is going to be just a little bit different because, well, I'm not really working in the shop today. I told you yesterday that this morning I had a meeting with my agronomist, Wade. He's sitting right over here. Howdy. And so we were working on some prescription maps here this morning. Now, last week, one day, I did a video where the second half of it was me showing you how I create prescription maps, right? So I'm taking all my yield history and I'm creating yield zones based on the different breakouts that I have or that I've decided are best, and then from there assigning rates to it. And I use this sheet here that Golden Harvest used to provide me that gave me a very good breakdown of what population each hybrid should be planted at based on the different yield levels that you are expecting to get, and taking into account prices of grain and the seed and that stuff. They don't offer that one anymore, but I still have it for some of the hybrids that I do use, so I've been using that. But my issue became, what do I do on the fields where I don't have a good recommendation there? So that's why I had Wade come up to help me figure that out. We've done a little bit of that, but I wanted to have him talk a little bit and maybe together here, but why are we doing this? That's one thing that I haven't really covered, is why do we need to make prescription maps and what are they doing? So Wade, what is the point of doing prescription maps in the first place?
So essentially, not every portion of the field is created equal. I think most farmers can agree with that. And so assigning a correct value for what seeding rate you want is going to be different across that field. And we're working hard to really maximize the efficiency of each individual corn kernel or soybean seed that we put in the ground.
Right. And so basically, the approach that I've taken is there's a couple of theories, but since the whole farm fields are not created equal, we have a ton of variation in our fields here, and my goal and idea is that I want to really push the good areas. So the areas that are low ground, that hold water well, have better soil types, I can push them. I can plant more plants per acre and expect to get a higher yield in those areas than I can on, say, the clay knobs that lay like this, where they don't hold water, and it's more likely to get dry in the summer, or there's just not as much good topsoil there, or even maybe it's just along tree lines where the trees and the wildlife are going to damage stuff to the point that we aren't going to get a return anyway. And in those areas, instead of pushing it, I want to conserve my costs a little bit. I don't want to put as much fertilizer out there. I don't want to plant as many seeds per acre because there's not going to be a return. So let's save a little bit of money. In reality, what ends up happening is I don't save any money, I reallocate it. I move it from the bad spots to the good spots, and I try and increase my return there. So,
yeah, oftentimes growers will look at a yield map and think that they should be having a yield map that's all one color, all green.
Right.
And that's really not what we're going for. We want to see a lot of different colors because we want the best parts of that field to really be outperforming the poorer spots in that field. So having a lot of colors in your yield map is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right. So I'm going to show you a map on the computer here, and I apologize, I'm not going to do a screen capture. I'm just going to show you on my phone because, well, it's faster and easier right now. But it'll show you some of the variation that we're talking about in the yield history, and then, you know, exactly what we're talking about here. All right, so this is one of our fields here, and you can see how much variation in it. Now, there are, I believe, 4 years worth of corn yield data tied into this map. So the scale is over here. The scale's not important. What matters is the variability, right? And so one thing I can do is change this contour button, maybe. My John Deere is not working very good today. But this will change kind of how big each little spot is and smooth out the edges a little bit. All right, well, that smoothed it out a little bit. It didn't do exactly like I wanted it to. But basically, you can see where we've got some poorer zones and where we've got some better zones. So we're going to vary our seeding rate anywhere. It depends on the hybrid, but probably anywhere from 25,000 along the trees and stuff up here, up to maybe 37 or 38,000 plants per acre in the good areas. So quite a wide range that I'm varying the population. So, all right, Wade. So I kind of showed them how I do stuff, but I'm by no means an expert at this. And so if somebody wanted to create a prescription map and maybe they don't have all this yield history, what are the things to consider? What's the best ways to do it?
Yeah, so currently with our Illuminate platform, we can generate variable rate seeding recs based on soil type. And soil type, while it's an imperfect science, it's certainly a really good one for somebody that's just getting ready to get started into the variable rate seeding program, or somebody that doesn't have a lot of yield data to import into something like that.
Right. So, and for those of you following along, Illuminate is a tool that Golden Harvest has. Wade's my Golden Harvest agronomist, and so that's something that the seed company provides to us, to me, and to my growers or any Golden Harvest growers to use to help, kind of make these decisions. So,
do you want to look at one of my fields?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll just set that there. So Wade's got a field here brought up of one of his, and that's soil type map.
Yeah, so the way I always describe it is I farm all the stuff that nobody else wants to farm. So I farm all the rolling hills, all the stuff that empties out into wet holes here at the bottom. And what Illuminate can do is generate a soil type map here, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see we can have different seeding rates for each one of these different soil types. And so when I go and plant this field, I'll have many different seeding rates that I can import and plant. That way I'm maximizing the efficiency of the soybeans that I plant.
Right. So in his case there, he said soybeans that he's going to plant. I haven't talked about soybean prescription maps yet very much. That's something that I also need to get working on. Any special considerations or how does making a prescription map for soybeans compare to making one for corn?
Yeah, it's a little bit of an inverse. When we look at a corn variable rate prescription, we're really trying to put more plants in areas that are high performing, whereas with soybeans, it's the exact opposite. We can be more productive for each individual soybean plant. Therefore, we need fewer of them in those highly productive areas. In the poorer parts of the field where each individual plant is less productive, we need to have more of them out there simply because each individual plant is less productive.
Right. And so in simple terms, I guess the way to describe that is a soybean plant, when it doesn't sense very much competition, it's going to branch out and it's going to get bigger and bushier in that one individual plant, and it's going to produce a lot more pods and therefore soybeans because it has the space and the nutrients and the resources to be able to do that. Corn, while it's going to respond to competition some, our corn yields are basically determined by how many ears you can get per acre. And the size of those ears obviously is important, but and our corn hybrids are rated whether they are a flex-eared hybrid or more of a fixed-eared hybrid. And the difference between the two is a flex-eared hybrid is going to respond to population different than a fixed ear. If you plant too many plants per acre on a flex-ear hybrid, the ear size is going to shrink, they're going to be smaller, and you're not really going to increase your yield. Essentially what you do is get the same amount of yield with more plants per acre because you have smaller ears on every plant. A more fixed or determinate sized ear is going to stay the same relatively regardless of how many plants per acre you put out there. So if you planted at 30,000, the ear is going to be the same size as if you planted at 36,000. Well, I'd rather have 36,000 ears that are the same size per acre than 30,000, and you get a lot more yield that way. So that's why this sheet became so important to me, because I need to know which hybrids respond to that population and which ones don't. And they all do to an extent. It's not like you can plant something, any hybrid, and get the exact same size ear, whether there's one plant by itself or a whole group of them clustered right together. They're going to respond to population somewhat, which is why I vary everything. The question is, do I vary it between 25 and 32,000, or do I start at 29,000 and go up to 39,000? And so that's what we're trying to figure out and working on. And
unfortunately for Nathan, although we don't have the Excel file anymore, we will be having a web-based option which has a lot of the same data, and will actually have the exact same endpoint on a ideal plants per acre per hybrid. that he's become accustomed to with our Excel file. So new things are coming.
So it sounds like they're going to replace this with a more modern version, which will be easier to use, easier for them to update and everything. So I'm looking forward to that. He said within another couple weeks, within a month before planting, that'll be available to me. So I'm just going to hold tight on some of these newer hybrids that I don't have that data for just yet, and we'll create them when we get closer to planting. So if you guys have any more questions on prescriptions, why we're doing this, do you want to talk about fertilizer at all, or any other things that we make prescriptions for and why we would do it?
Yeah, I mean the same holds true with fertilizer as well. With those more productive areas of the farm being able to produce more bushels, we need to feed the crop in order to achieve those types of yields. Right. And so in the better performing areas, we put down more fertilizer.
So something that I have noticed, it tends to be a way that people think about it, is in your better areas of the farm or the field, you don't need to put as much fertilizer on because there's more already there. If you take soil samples and you separate out your best yielding zones from your poorest yielding zones, you may find that there are more nutrients in the better zones, but you might also find the exact opposite. And what I have found is that for years and years and years, farmers would blanket rate their phosphorus and their potassium and lime. And while that was the best way we had to do it until variable rate stuff came out here 10 to 15 years ago, what ended up happening is in your highly producing areas, the plant was removing more. So when we harvest a crop off, you're removing some of the nutrients from that ground in the form of grain. And so that poor areas of the field, you were not removing as much, even though you were putting just as much on. And so while, again, you go back to that theory, am I trying to make the field level and everything the same, or am I trying to really push the good areas and save cost in the poorer areas? Most of the time, what we find when we look at our soil sample results is the poorer areas of the field actually have pretty decent nutrients available, because they don't produce as much and they aren't removing as much. The areas of the field that need the nutrients are the better producing areas of the field that are removing a lot of nutrients every year. Agreed?
Overall, I think the summary of all of this is that farmers today are more efficient than they've ever been. Point blank. Absolutely.
And that's I mean, obviously there's a benefit to us to saving money and reallocating it and trying to push the yields where we can and get the best return possible. But there are a lot of other benefits to doing variable rate and stuff. It's environmental stewardship. It's making sure we're putting the right product at the right place at the right time. There's another R. I forgot what it is. There's 4 R's. I forgot one of them. But right product, right place, right time, right something else. And we're making sure that we're doing things right. And not that it was done wrong in the past, but we have new technology and new tools available to us now to help us do a better job. And so taking advantage of them, not only is it good for things, outside of our profitability, it's also good for our profitability, and it's a win-win for everybody. So anyway, like I said, any more questions and comments on variable rate, fertilizer, seed, prescriptions, all that kind of stuff? Usually you guys think these are boring. It's probably a boring video. I'm sorry. It's what I'm doing today. So anyway, we're going to wrap some of this stuff up, and we're going to go down to the seed warehouse, sort through some plot seed a little bit. We're also making some plans for what plots we're going to do this year. If you guys followed along with me last year, you know that I do what they call an agronomy in action site here. We do a little bit more extensive plot work and testing different things, trying to see what we can learn. And we're going to do that again this year, so we're just making a plan on what kind of trials and things that we want to test. All right, well, we came back down here to the seed warehouse. Wade wanted to take a look at the plot seed here. He was looking for something specific on that pallet that did not come yet, so we got some more stuff that's coming. Remember I got a box of empty bags here a month or so ago? Well, those, turns out, are for him to split some plot bags and stuff. So he took them. He's taking off now. Thanks to Wade for helping me with that video and helping me with this video and helping me with all my prescription stuff here this morning. We're getting stuff figured out, and so that's good. So anyway, I've got some errands to run this afternoon, so I'm going to go and do all of that stuff. I will be back this afternoon. Maybe we'll get a little bit of work done in the farm or in the shop. And I do have some other cool stuff on the computer that I found this morning that I kind of want to show you guys too. So maybe we'll go over that. All right, guys, I'm back from running some errands. It's not quite 4 o'clock in the afternoon here, so I'm not really going to do much in the shop. I really should get this stuff out of here because on Monday, Plan is to bring the sprayer in the shop. That's kind of the last major piece of equipment that we've got to get out and get ready for the spring here. In another 2 to 3 weeks-ish, it will be time to put some 28, some nitrogen on our wheat crop. So we got to get the sprayer ready to do that. That means bringing it through the shop, doing a little bit of cleaning, and changing the engine oil, air filters, all the normal service work. We need to put the floater tires on it, so we've got to do that. And then as we get some decent days outside that we can take it out and unfold the boom, Dad's got some work he needs to do on some valves and some plumbing and stuff, and just make sure everything is ready to go for the year. So this stuff has to come out of the shop. I should move it out now, but I'm really not quite done with it. We're waiting on some parts for the Gator that I'm hoping will come on Monday. Just some U-bolts and some minor little things to put that box in or finish securing that. And then I've got a couple of parts and a few things coming for this anhydrous bar, that plastic nylon piece for this gauge wheel being one of them. And then I did order some other stuff. Let me show you this. So I think I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but if you go back and watch my video when we demoed a 2510H last spring, if I showed it in those videos, you'll notice that the closing wheel setup is just a little bit different on this bar than what that one was. That other bar had what they call, the dealer calls, the Northwest Ohio package on it. Basically what they're doing is making the closing system a little bit more aggressive because we have some heavy clay soils and it can be a little bit difficult to keep the anhydrous in the ground. So notice how this closing wheel has this notched blade on it. It is reversed from this one. The bigger side is in. They had that on both wheels. So what I did was order some more of these discs. They just bolt onto this. They'll bolt through here. We're going to take this off, flip it around so that it is also throwing dirt in a little bit more aggressively. And then I also got, see there's a spacer in there I got another spacer, so we're going to put 2 in there, use up the rest of the threads on our bolt to widen them out so they grab more dirt and pile it on top of the row where the anhydrous has been applied to help keep it in the ground a little bit better. So I did order those parts to do that. They should be here. I don't know if they'll come Monday, maybe Tuesday. But sometime next week we will work on putting those back on too. So, and then I was still working on getting some shims and trying to figure out what exactly we need to do with the quick coupler, or not the quick coupler, the draft links and the 3-point, and making sure that that doesn't sway and move around on us. So probably going to take this out, put it in the barn in the back while we get the sprayer out, but it's one of those things that we got a lot of equipment to shuffle around Monday morning, so we'll just do it all then. So I'm going to come back in here on the computer. I'm going to work on some more prescription stuff a little bit. I've got a lot of that kind of stuff to do yet. But I have a couple of other cool things that I figured out this morning when I was sitting here with Wade that I want to show you guys because I think it's really cool. And since we were talking about computer stuff in this video, we might as well do some more. All right, so I put a lot of time and effort into doing this variable rate stuff, right? Making prescriptions up, trying to increase our yields and do stuff. And how do you know if it's working or worth it, or whether the time and effort put into it is worth it? Well, the best way to do it is to leave some check strips or blocks and try and analyze off of that data. I've tried to do some of that in the past. It can be a little bit tricky to do, and I've never felt like I've done a real good job with it. But one thing I can do is with my John Deere here, the operations center, I can kind of analyze my different zones, and I can see, all right, if I applied this at this rate, what was the yield versus when I applied it at this rate, and kind of compare that way. So let me just show you some comparison maps. All right, again, I apologize. I'm not doing a screen recording. I'm just recording this with my phone, but hopefully you can see all right, and the glare is not too terrible bad from my lights. But this is one field, 2 side-by-side images of it. This one over here is our yield map. This one over here is an as-applied map. Well, it's a prescription map of the anhydrous rates. Okay, so those zones basically match up with my zone, but this is what the computer in the tractor was telling the anhydrous bar you should be putting on this amount. So if we look at those, and you can see how closely they tie. Look at this blue streak here and here. That's all the good areas. The reds are in the bad zones. Okay, so then when we come down in the bottom here, it'll tell us. So our target rate of 200.1, well, that was just this little tiny amount of yellow over here. That's not a good comparison because it was just 1/10 of an acre. So we'll start at this 186. That was 186 pounds of N with the side dress. There was 16.3 acres of that. The average yield there, 209.47. So that's anywhere that was blue. Let me highlight it. This is super slow sometimes, so I'm not going to do this a lot, but basically, it was all of this blue area. Come on. And then essentially what's green on the yield map over there. All right, we're going to, yeah. So then if we look at the 160, which would be the next rate down, we averaged 177. Now this zone where it averaged 177, that's the zone that I would have created based on everything that historically has been between 150 and 180. The 186 rate up here was anything between 180 and 210. The next zone down here would be between 120 and 150. So you can see we were at the top end of my yield zones, which is good. That's what we want. We want to push things and make them better over time, but we're right in the range there, and we're getting what we're applying fertilizer for and what we're planning for. Everything is falling in that range. And so I feel like that means we're doing a pretty darn good job. Okay, so one of the other things that we can analyze is if we do some split field stuff with some applications. So this map over here now is the same field where I applied some V5 or maybe V6 fungicide on that corn. So when the corn was maybe 8 to 10 inches tall, I sprayed it with some Quadris, a pretty cheap early fungicide. And in this map, then we'll compare out to this one and tell me, okay, so in the areas that we applied it, this is the target rate. Basically, it was 12 gallons to the acre, but the whole thing was applied the same, so that's irrelevant, the rate. The fact is that it was applied versus not applied. And you can see we applied 50 acres. We did not apply on 24.2 acres, and look at the yield difference. 182 versus 161. So essentially, there was 21 bushels per acre difference where we sprayed it versus where we didn't. Now, that's a pretty darn good argument to spray everything if you can get 20 bushel to the acre, right? Because that fungicide application, the chemical cost us maybe $8 or $9 an acre. You figured $5 or even $7 an acre for the application cost. So maybe at the high end, you got $15 an acre invested into that application. Well, 15 times, say for this fall, corn's at 450, 4.5, oh wait, no, 4.5 times 20 bushels per acre increase. That's $90 an acre of income with $15 an acre cost. That's $75 an acre gain. That's pretty darn good. Now, you got to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt because you will notice that we had a big red area up here in the corner by this woods that is not part of the applied area. So that's going to bring the average down. But part of this area was sprayed. And then, you know, it did make a difference. It absolutely made a difference. Was it 20 bushel the acre? No, but it might have been 10. Might have been every bit of 10 to 15. So that's some of the cool things that I can do with some of this comparison. There's another field where we have the same thing. Let me pull that one up real quick. Okay, so here's another field. And this is the exact same thing, a V5 Quadris application. And if you look down here on the bottom, we only applied 36 acres in this field, kind of this patch right through the middle here. We did not apply 46 acres around both sides of it. And if you look down here, we see the exact same thing again. 187 versus 166. That's 21 bushel difference. That's consistent. That's incredible. That's like that's the data that you want to see to give you confidence to go ahead and spray this stuff and do it and know that it's going to return to you. So you know, pretty cool if you ask me that I can see this data and make those comparisons and say, yes, it is working. Here's another comparison map where we applied something, and this one we applied most of the field. There was only 10 acres out of 130 that didn't get applied. But this was a wheat field, and what we applied was an insecticide because we had army worms come in our wheat really late last year, and we decided we needed to spray them. Well, where we sprayed, it averaged 75 in this field. Where we didn't, it was 64. Now, those aren't great wheat yields to start with, but it made 10 or 11 bushel difference spraying it with the insecticide, so it was a good thing we did it. All right, so anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up here. I'm going to work on some stuff in the office here on these a little bit more. But have a great weekend, everybody. Go watch some Big Ten basketball. Go Bucks. I don't know how the game's going right now. They were up big at halftime, but my Sparties laid an egg yesterday, so oh well. But anyway, we'll see you guys again on Monday. Thanks for watching this week. If you haven't, do the things you do, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. So we'll see you guys on Monday.